check in with you guys, kind of explain how the class is going to work online for the rest of up until April 15th or past if they decide to continue to postpone school online for my classroom. And then I also kind of want to talk to you about your reading on Fahrenheit 451. So from here on out, it is going to look different than it did before spring break. So before spring break, we were just trying to catch up, get online. But from here on out, there's going to be two major things that we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on the book, Fahrenheit 451. You should have all either come and picked it up, or you should have gotten it in the mail by now over spring break. So check for that. If you don't have it, email me because you really should have gotten it in the mail. Also, number 2, a research paper. So even though we are not having school in person, we are still going to be having a research paper. So I am going to be writing it with you. So we are going to be doing step-by-step processes. I am not going to be saying, boom, have the entire paper done by the end of this week. I am going to be building it on step-by-step, whether that be this week, which is just picking your topic and explaining why you want to write on that topic, picking your sources, starting to pick out quotes that you could use from that source, and then writing it progressively. It is going to be the same as the synthesis paper, it's just longer. So you've kind of already gotten a rough idea about how to write a research paper. All of the instructions are going to be linked on Google Classroom, so keep up with that. So basically the way that my classroom is going to work is that I'm going to have certain pages that you need to read in your book, Fahrenheit 451, which looks like this. And then I want you to watch the YouTube video that I'm going to be making every week that goes with it. I'm just going to be talking through some of the highlights, some of the main points, and addressing any major concerns that I continue to see through either emails or through Google Classroom. And then I'm also going to be having reading checks for you to make sure that you are reading the book. So that is going to be your test grade. So as of right now, we're going to put a pause on doing vocab.com, and we're going to focus more on doing reading and then getting the research paper set up. And then the last thing that we're going to do is going to be the research paper and that step. I am going to be giving you time throughout the week to do it. So my assignments are going to be due Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So that way, if you want to work ahead that you can, but that you also have adequate time to finish the assignment. So your Fahrenheit 451 book, you should have gotten it in the mail by now. And for this week, you are reading pages 1 through 21, so not that hard. You're just kind of getting an introduction to the characters and that sort of stuff. If you are having problems reading the book, instead of us reading it out loud in class, you can find YouTube videos, and I will link those on Google Classroom so that if you want to read the audiobook or you're kind of having trouble understanding like what the heck's going on, even after you watch this YouTube video, it should help you to better understand what the characters are doing and kind of what's going on. So I do want to kind of address this book because this book is completely different from any other book that we've read in class. Every other book that we've read in class has been very realistic and kind of with the times. This book is not. This book was written in the 1950s by Ray Bradbury, and Ray Bradbury was kind of almost ahead of his times with writing. It's a dystopian book, so it's kind of like a perfect society gone bad. So if you've ever watched like The Hunger Games or The Maze Runner or something like that, it's sort of along that lines. And also I kind of want to talk about what was going on in the 1950s. So the 1950s was just post World War II, and this was also during the Cold War. So everyone was hyper suspicious of communists coming into the government and all of this suspicion, and are other countries going to come in and conquer us, and even suspicion amongst ourselves, like, are you a communist? Like, what's gonna happen? There's also the buildup of all of these nuclear war. There's the advancement of science and technology because we got to keep up with the Russians. And so this is sort of the background information that he is writing in the 1950s with Ray Bradbury. So Ray Bradbury was, like I said, really ahead of his times. even though he is writing in the 1950s, just as television is starting to come out, and radio and propaganda, and the very faint tinge of not trusting the US government doesn't even come until the Vietnam War, which starts in the 1960s. We can still relate this a lot to our lives. It actually relates a lot of things to things that we see in the media and government censorship, and how much do we really trust the government. And as certainly with this coronavirus, we can certainly see how big the government has a role in our lives, and what can they limit, and what can they say, and what is the media saying. So all of that goes into this book. Those are themes in this book, is the government and distrust, and what are they really telling us. And so that's what's really, really going to be interesting about this book. Like I said, this book is a dystopian novel, so it's gonna be weird. Like, there's weird stuff that happens in it. The people are kind of weird. The technology is different. The words are very flowy and flowery. And I also kind of want to point out that pretty much everything in this book is a metaphor for something. So kind of think big. What could he be trying to mean by saying this? So based off of the cover, I know that it's backwards, but what do you think this book is about? What do you think this book is about? I want you to kind of think about that. Also, another hint on what this book could be about is, if you go past this last page, so this book looks really, really thick, but it's actually not, because there's only 158 pages. The whole rest of it, like this whole part, you don't have to read, so it's not actually that long. It's actually, there were books that we read this year that were longer than that, so don't panic. So I want you to go to page 158 and kind of flip over, and there's going to be a picture that looks like this. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause, and I want you to kind of look at this picture. This picture is a scene from the book. It's kind of a weird picture. If you've read at this point, then you kind of have an idea about who this person might be, and kind of like why he's doing what he's doing. But if you don't, then I do want you to read before you watch this YouTube video, because everything that I'm gonna say from here on out isn't going to really make a lot of sense. So what I want you to do is, I want you, in the Google Forms link to this, to prove that you A, read, and B, are watching this YouTube video. I want you to go on that Google Forms, and I want you to answer the question, what do you predict this book is about, based off of the front cover and the picture on page 128. And then I also want you to go through and just really briefly answer those couple of questions, just to make sure that you watched this YouTube video. So, as we are going through the book, I want to pay attention to that first line. It was a pleasure to burn. I don't know about you, but that's kind of ironic, because when I think about things burning, like I think about the world burning to pieces right now, I don't really think of that as like a pleasurable thing. And so what I want you to do is I want you to underline, star, or highlight that line, because it's a really super important line to the book. It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. So this is a person who loves fire. We don't know why he loves, or she at this point loves fire. We don't really understand like why they're so obsessed with fire, but this is something that we know. So as you're going forward, you see the numbers 451 on a helmet, and you kind of figure out that this main character, whose name is Guy Montag, or Montag, and he is going to be the main character of this book, sorry. And so look kind of through the book again. So what job does Guy Montag have? Well, he's a firefighter, but he's not the stereotypical firefighter that you would normally think of, because he actually burns books. Yes, maybe some of you are cheering like, woohoo, burn all books forever, but this is a government-funded employee who is burning books. Something crazy is going on with the world where they are burning books. Why are they burning books? We don't know. So we're kind of thinking about him as we go forth. So as you kind of go forward, you are kind of seeing him on a high. He is so pumped because he really loves burning books. He really likes that. By the way, if you ever see him talking about a salamander, and if you also notice the chapter of this section right here is the hearth and the salamander. So salamander is going to be, it's kind of like those lizards that you see like near your front door in here in Florida all the time, but they're not, they're more like near water, so they're kind of like slimy. So anytime you see that, it's going to be a symbol for the firemen, the firehouse. And these firemen are sort of like the symbolic of the government. They're doing what the government tells them to do, and the government is telling them to burn down books. So he's kind of walking down the street, he's going home, and he meets this new character called Clarice. Now, how old is Clarice? Well, Clarice is 17, almost, and she is kind of just floating along in the world, and her and Guy have this whole conversation about the world, and she's kind of almost surprised at the fact that he's so willing to talk to her. They're kind of just talking about life and society, and he's trying to kind of explain why he's burning books, and this is sort of when we learn that he's burning books because it's against the law to read them. So I want you to think for just a second. Why do you think the government was taking books and having firemen burn them? So for me, I kind of think about the government as something that if they want you to have freedom, and here in the United States, the government definitely advocates for people to individuality. But if you think about it, if the government wants a certain thing to be done, do they help promote individuality? I mean, I think about the communists in like North Korea and China, and not really. They kind of want everybody to be the same and nobody to have unique ideas. So where do you get unique ideas? In a world where social media doesn't exist, because remember, 1950s, no social media. So I would get them from books. And so what does the government try to do? They try to burn books because it's kind of making everybody, it's almost like brainwashing people. Like when you get into a cult, like you have to think the way that they're gonna think. So that's sort of what he's doing here. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of find this interaction to be a little bit weird, as far as this weird like upper 30-year-old man talking to this like 17-year-old girl, and it's weird and it's dark and it's like on the street and they're by themselves, so it sounds weird, but keeping in mind that it is the 1950s, and so everything is kind of pure, and this is a pure conversation and everything that's going on. So she kind of ends with asking him a weird question, and Clarice asks Guy Montag, are you happy? Now, it kind of strikes him as crazy because he's like, yeah, of course, yeah, I'm happy. But then when he thinks about it, he's kind of like, I'm not actually happy. And so this interaction with Clarice is like the flame, the starting ignition point that gets him further and further into this adventure that he's gonna have. I apologize for the sound of birds in the background. That's super annoying. They did not show up until the start. Okay, so he is going into his bedroom, and he's married. So he's married and his wife is there. Whenever it talks about his wife having little seashells in her ears, think like AirPods. So the AirPods are like constantly playing noise. They're constantly in her ear, people talking and doing things. Something else that I kind of want you to notice is that the thing that he trips over is her pill bottle, and her name is Mildred. So Mildred is Guy Montag's wife. She has overdosed on sleeping pills. So he freaks out and he calls these quote unquote like doctors, and they come in and they take all of the blood, all of the fluids, everything out of her, and then pump new, fresh, not her own blood back into her. And that's how they save them. And they just, how's their attitude throughout this whole part? If you look back, and especially now I'm getting on to page like 12 and into 13, you're kind of seeing that they do like a dozen of these a night. It's no big deal, whatever. Not a big deal at all. And so if you kind of think about it, what does that really say about the society that these people are living in? Are they really all happy if so many people are committing suicide a day? But then if you also think about today's generation, people still commit suicide, have depression, have bad things in this society where we get to choose today. So which society is better? A one where the government controls your thoughts and controls and understands your every emotion? Or is it like today's society where we have the freedom of choice? An interesting thought. So, this whole thing that you kind of see on 14 and 15, it does go on for a while, and it kind of like, what the heck is he doing? He's laying there and he's listening to the raindrops beat down, and he's kind of like thinking through everything that has happened. That's why it's kind of like repetitive. Have you ever tried to fall asleep and your mind is just so busy and you just can't fall asleep? That's sort of what's happening to Guy right now, because he's freaking out because his wife just overdosed. So something's obviously happening. This teenage girl even recognizes that he's not happy. And so that's kind of what he's talking about here. All right, going on through page 15. All of these robots are making breakfast when Guy wakes up, and Mildred is just casually making breakfast in the kitchen. And she does not even remember this whole scenario. She doesn't know that she overdosed, and she denied that that even happened. So why do you think that Mildred thinks that this never happened? And more importantly, why did Guy Montag lie to his wife that she committed suicide? That seems like something pretty serious that maybe you should get some help for. Or perhaps has he just lost hope on his wife? I don't know what's going to happen. So as we kind of go through, I'm kind of looking at the bottom, the very, very bottom of page 17, where it's talking about the 3 walls. So these 3 walls are like TVs, but the TVs are not the couple inches size that we're used to seeing. These are going to be whole wall TVs. So they're massive, like floor to ceiling to edges. And she has 3 of them, and she really, really wants, Mildred really wants a 4th wall. And all she does all day, every day, is she sits in front of this TV and talks to it. So the TV is like playing TV shows, but then she also has this new thing where she can interact. And that's what she does every day, all day, while her husband, Guy, is out working as a fireman. So she is talking all about how she wants a 4th TV, a 4th wall TV. So kind of think about like what is the difference between Mildred and Guy? I kind of wonder like why they ever got to be married. It kind of seems like Mildred is sort of ditzy, and Guy, perhaps he was kind of oblivious to what was happening, but now he's not. Now he's come to his own, and he's tired of realizing something is going on that's really different. So, as we finish up this first bit that you are reading for me, we have one last interaction between Clarice, and we have one last interaction between Clarice and Guy. So if you cut off, there's like one more sentence down at the bottom of page 21. So from here on out, it's just going to be basically to the line break. So there's a couple of pages that you'll see in the upcoming assignments that'll be like to the halfway point on the page. You'll see pretty soon as we kind of go along, as we split it up. So they are talking about continuing, like, who's in love. And what I kind of find is ironic is that guy keeps on saying that he's in love. Yes, he's in love. But this dandelion test that supposedly is supposed to prove that he's in love comes across as negative. So he's not in love. Or maybe, I don't know. Could he be in love with somebody else? Or maybe he just doesn't really know what love is. We don't know how this is going to play out. And as we see, how does the government feel about somebody like Clarice, who is having her own opinions and is with her family just a little bit odd? We see that she's going to seek psychiatrist help, court mandated by the government. So we're going to pause there. I do really want you to continue to read. I'm not going to give you every detail on the reading checks. You are going to be doing the reading sections. So I am going to be asking you specific questions about that. You might see online that there is a movie of this and it has Michael B. Jordan in it. I have watched the movie, and I'm not gonna lie, it has pretty much next to nothing to do with the book. So definitely don't watch that to try to figure out what the movie or what the book is about, because they really aren't related. I would highly just recommend you just reading the book. You can watch the movie for fun. It's not the best movie, and it's definitely not in the book. So I would recommend not watching it, especially not for any sort of academic purposes. So, reading, this YouTube video, and just the quick check, the reading check, which is going to count for a test grade, and then I want you to look over, decide for your topic on the research paper. I promise, don't panic. You will be fine on the research paper. We will work through this together. And I'm also hoping to get out your rubrics from when I graded your synthesis essays, so that I can give you an update on kind of why you got the grade that you did and what you really need to work on. So something that I really worked on or really noticed when I was grading was that your in-text citations really need some work. So for most of you, that should be really something that we focus on, because that's something that quite a few of you struggle on. So I'm going to be going through that step by step. But this week, you just need to pick a topic and tell me why you want to write on that topic. So, signing off, and I will see you again next week.